Every once in a while, someone comes along and changes everything for pizza that is Chris Bianco.
Everything starts for me in my world, in my life, in my family with kindness. Anything that's outside of kindness for me personally cannot be good.
The James Beard award-winning pizza maker started making waves in the culinary world when he opened Pizzeria Bianco in 1988 in a small corner of a grocery store in Phoenix, Arizona. What started as a modest venture has since become what many consider the best pizza in America. But his true legacy is the influence he's had on a new generation of pizza makers. And what has remained unchanged is his commitment to authenticity. And that often means his relationship to the people that surround him, including strangers. But Chris's journey wasn't easy. Growing up in the Bronx of New York, he struggled in school, suffered from asthma, often making him feel out of place. Yet it was his sensitivity to people and his health challenges that led him to a deeper connection to food. Anyone who has had the pleasure of tasting his pizza makes their own assumptions of why it's so good.
They would look at the wood fire and they'd like, oh, that's the answer, that's the secret. Oh, that's the secret, and you got the tomatoes, that's the secret, and that's everything's a secret. And the reality was there was no secret, it was all fragile.
We're accustomed to finding answers and meaning to what we're seeing right in front of us, even if it's a damn good slice of pizza. But the secret to Chris Bianco's pizza is not the tomatoes, or the flour, or the cheese. It's Chris Bianco. This is Unplated. So if I think of Chris Bianco as a pizza, what are those ingredients that
We're
make
gonna
up?
need a bigger box, I guess.
What are the ingredients that make up Chris Bianco?
The ingredients. Let's see. Well, first of all, I think, just to get back to the perfect pizza, and I think the things that set you free, I think, as a chef or as anything, the day you understand perfection is subjective, and I think it goes, there's ebbs and flows of perfection that sometimes the stars align and we're able to hit it. I think the one thing I attempt to do is the controllables. What can I control? What can I can show up. I mean, if it's work, I'm gonna fucking show up every day. Like on time, 5 minutes early. I'm a freak about being late. Like I don't really care that much if you're late a little bit, but I feel it's disrespectful if I'm late.
Like let's continue the pizza analogy.
Yeah.
Who were the people that contributed to those ingredients that shaped who you are?
Well, I think we make nothing, without, like, there's nothing. I think we start out, I make. I'm like, unless you make rain, I've said many times, it's a collaboration. And I think when you start with that place, it starts with a sense of gratitude, to be grateful. There's can be something, no matter what your intention, can get in the way of that. What's in our way? What's in our way? So I think if you're making a pizza, you want to build a bridge, like what's in our way? Well, a rushing tide or we're out of water, we're like, and I think understanding those basic things were things that made sense, even in a spiritual way. Like, I don't really care what you believe in, but I do believe, for me, it's been helpful to know there was something greater than me, there was something bigger than me, there was something more important, and therefore I got to serve something. Like, for me, I'm of service of the sum of the parts is pizza, but mine is making sure that our water is of good source and clean, that our flour is from good grain and from good farmers of good earth, that are practicing, organic methods or regenerative methods to be better for the earth. And I think I'm just trying to ask better questions, I guess, not in a defiant way, but I would say help me understand, which I think sets us free in a way of, I don't know. I grew up in a world that a lot of people already knew the answer to the question. And that's something kind of makes me crazy. Like, someone says, how do you do that? Yeah, that's the way I do it too. They're answering the question before you even dive into it. And
In what world was that? Is that
well,
growing up in
I think I grew up in New York, where
the Bronx, right?
Yeah, I was born in the Bronx, and then we moved up to a little town, sleepy little town, about 21 miles up the majestic Hudson River, Austin, New York, which was a million miles away, but a stone's throw at the same time. And it was, for me, we were rich. We always had something to eat. My dad was like all artists struggling to be enough, for himself as an artist to make sure the electrical bill got paid. My mom worked Saks in New York in the city and commuted every day when we moved up there. And with her 2 little shopping bags, maybe stopped at Eli's and got some bagels on the way home or whatever. For the next morning. And that was life. Life was the struggle that we all face, no matter what, when you're part of a collective. In this case, a family. But
Yeah.
it was I only knew that I was loved, and I would never go hungry. And years later, when I have kids, I think that I remind them that it might seem that way, but I was a kid about nine minutes ago. In a way, and I try to give them to make sure that hopefully they can feel loved. I think it all starts there, I guess.
Do you still feel connected to your childhood self today?
I do very much, probably too much so. I think it's one of the greatest gifts I ever got. I had was being with my dad when he passed at 92, and I saw him like almost disconnect spirit from skin and bone, and it was super powerful. It was something I dreaded my whole life, and it reinforced something that I think that we all rent shit. This is all rented stuff. I own businesses. I own nothing. We'll put nails on walls that someone will pull out. This shit'll be maybe in some thrift store for $5, and hopefully not for a while. But I think when you deal with those realities, you learn what to hold on tighter to, and what not to hoard, stuff. But hopefully you're managing your relationships and do I feel connected to my child self? Yeah, I think that's part of not the problem, but the reality for us. We're looking externally. Like we live in a world, in the selfie world sometimes, but I didn't grow up in that world, and I try not to, I know what I look like. I try not to see myself too much, because we can look externally. We can see the world we want to see, and I think there's something to that, to look outward. And when you look outward, I think it's easy to see the inside will take care of itself,
Yeah.
And so in a way, I can feel 19 or, some days 90 or, but things in very simple terms to me were always like time or days seem man-made, and I guess they are. Sun goes down, it comes up, but for us, it's still just light and dark, and we blink. And hopefully we get up, and one day we might not. But in the middle of that, I want to make sure that I squeeze the daylights out of every day. I want to make sure that, like, the party, in essence, doesn't end.
Right.
There's never enough time. With people you love, and I just want to, just not be ungrateful to this opportunity on earth, for sure.
You said something earlier that you kind of grew up in a world where everyone seemed to know the answer.
Yeah. I don't know if it's changed, really, the world. Everybody seems like they know a lot.
What did you mean by that?
Probably even when I opened the pizzeria years ago in '88, and people come in and they would look at the wood fire and they'd like, oh, that's the answer, that's the secret. Oh, that's the secret, and you got the tomatoes, that's the secret, and everything's a secret. And the reality was there was no secret. It was all fragile. It was all no secrets. They were all just kind of tools, parts, sum of parts of the sum. And I found that people would ask you questions like, how about you? Oh, that's the way I do. Let's do the same temperature as mine. Oh, they would ask you questions, but they were kind of answering their own question in a way more than. But I was lucky enough to bump in a few people in my life that we're really good at asking better questions, you know. And at first, I think it can be off-putting when someone says, like, "What do you mean by that?" Like, I mean, I guess you could say, like, "What do you mean by that?" But what do you mean by that? Like, help me understand. And that was really a life changer for me. That you know, I think that is for my kids. I hope that I can't give them much, I think, to make the world better, but I hope that they attempt to be diligent and understand things before they react to everything, you know, so spontaneously. And well, like I said, we're in a world now, like, boom, you want to lose weight, boom, here's a shot. You want to get, here's a pill, here's a thing where I'll fix it tomorrow. It doesn't happen that way. It's a slow burn. It's a long winter, you know, bro. It doesn't. It's like you got to put the work in, and then there's, you know, then the leaves fall off, and then if we're good to it, to things, and we're fortunate, the leaves will come back and we'll harvest again. But you know, yeah. I think there's a lot of things I don't understand, and before I react to them, I'll to the best of my ability, if I disagree with somebody politically or spiritually or whatever, before I like, oh, I want to make sure, like, hey man, how did they get this way, man? How did they get to feel this way, isolated or you know, whatever the situation was, before I just respond to something external. That and then I try to do inventory of, you know, hopefully not, but did I do anything? Like sometimes I ask, like, man, if you're, you know, if I see you like with a red ass, you know, you're pissed off about something. Not you ever would be, but I was like, I want to before
I got some days.
Someday, but I said, but first, even my own inventory, like, I want to make sure that did I do anything before I react? What the fuck's the matter with this dude? Like, man, I want to make sure, like, I cut you off on the way in, or I took your parking space, or not that I would or anything. But did I do anything to put you in a place of discontent? You know, and I think when you start there and you do your own inventory of that, then you can maybe you can find out that someone need help, or they need a different type of attitude adjustment, or, you know, you just need to remove yourself from that situation. It's not good for you. But yeah, I don't waste a lot of time being right. You know, I just kind of, something doesn't serve a greater good.
Do you see a connection to that idea that people bring their own emotional baggage to any situation or any platform, right? Or any space? Do you see a connection to how that relates to hospitality, where you have a restaurant and you have people from all walks of life? You have no clue what they're going through, and they're entering your space. How do you navigate that from like a hospitable perspective?
Well, I think if you put the word hospitality first, you know, to be hospitable, and then you are able to, you know, understand what it means to you. Like, you can either say, I own this restaurant, or you can say, I'm here to provide hospitality, and that's a profession, but really the profession is providing hospitality. And I always talk about, for me, disarming of the guest. You know, to feel welcome is something that's innate in all of us. We just want to feel welcome in whatever situation, to have a perspective, to have a comment, to have an opinion. We want to feel welcome to give it. And so on both ends of that table, when I walk into your house, I want to make sure that I come in softly. I want to make sure that I come in respectfully. I want to make sure that I come in and I'll be the first one to blink. I don't, you know, like I would say, like when a dog's sleeping on his back and he's happy, he's not worried about the world. You see a dog gripping, you know, the nails are going in the shag rug hard, and they don't really trust, you know, whoever's in the room, and they're on gripping. And I've seen customers come in both ways. Like, oh man, I'm so happy to be here. Like, fuck, we're gonna check this place out. I'm gonna check it out. And those things always felt clinical, you know, and I still work hard to hopefully disarm of the day, because I don't know what happened to you on the way in. Was it traffic? Did someone you love pass? Are you sick? Someone you love sick? Was it the best day, the worst day of your life? But the thing that I can control is, like, you know, I spend a lot of days and nights in front of a fire, and I've never been too busy. If you're in my peripheral, I want to find a way to connect to you, whatever that is. I don't have a pitch or hey, welcome to whatever. And, it's like, it could be a head nod. It could be an energetic disarmament. It could be something that it might be me making somebody else aware that you're there, wherever you are. And I think those things are palpable. Those things are understanding what you, in this case, the diner needs. Are you thirsty? Do you need a chair? Are you dizzy? Or whatever. Are you here to, whatever you're here to do, that I want to, as quickly as we can, provide you with what you need. That's why you came for something.
Right.
You walked into this so you could stay at home. You came for something. So it's up to me not to be negligent to that. It's to recognize your need and respond to it. And I am a servant, proudly a servant first. And I don't take that in a way that is, I've chosen that. I've chosen to serve you. It's not, I don't see a position of anything subservient in that way. It's I'm feeding you, and I think there's great respect in that. And I think there's, to be of service of something, I think is incredibly noble,
Where would you say that came from?
Well, I'll tell you this, man. Everything starts for me in my world, in my life, in my family with kindness. Anything that's outside of kindness for me personally cannot be good. Like for me, like it's hard for unkind people or bad people to do good things for others. And sometimes it's self-serving. And I was very fortunate to grow up with parents that, even though none of them were in the restaurant business, my mom was a great chef, great cook, great everything. She worked in fashion and sewing like bridal veils, like 1,000 little,
No
beads on a
kidding.
thing. Her fingers still all gnarly and whatever from it. And my dad, was a painter and like lived in judgment of others. And, watched him like get beat down by some account manager. They get something cheaper for the label, just to see art, not as art's sake, and to see craft, not as craft's sake. It wasn't like the medieval times where the rich people are supporting the artists to fucking amuse them.
Right.
This is like, shit, man, we got to pay the bills. And so I think there was a weird, I think, purview or perspective of that for me. And I think a lot of those things it was compounded by, and I talked about this before, when I was a kid, like 5 years old, when we, kind of like right after we left the city that I got asthma, pretty bad. And where I would like, back then there was very minimal treatment. It was like you could chew on this pills that I had, Marax, whatever it was called. Or I could go get a shot of adrenaline at the hospital, and we had a really bad attack. So I would stay up all night to stay ahead of it, like no matter what. And
How old were you at this point?
I was probably from probably 6, 7, 8 till in my probably in my early teens. That I would stay up all night, and in reality, looking back on it, and even then, I think that might have been my greatest gift. That when we're young, we're so immortal, And I think no matter what it was, I think when you can't breathe, as I'm stopping now, is when you can't breathe, when you take your breath literally away, you find humility. You find that humility. When you lose that, when you're without breath, you have nothing to say now. It's like, there's something afoot on your everything. And I think for me, it gave me like a lot of time to be merciful, and want to see in others what people couldn't see in me, because, I didn't need fucking people that had a million problems worse than I had, or whatever, or situations worse than I had. So I didn't feel victim. I didn't feel whatever. I feel I had a condition that was like everyone had something, like everyone had something to deal with. And this was something I had to deal with. And what I was dealing with was helpful to me. I would never trade it for the world. Still to this day, it keeps me like, where's my inhaler or those things, or I got to eat certain ways or live a certain way, you know, and it makes me I think just conscious of our fragility, I think, in a way, you know, and you know, it wasn't, you know, something where you got a big cast or you're sick and you got like a cartoon thing in your head, like, you know, someone hit you with a rubber hammer and you get the, you know, so you look fine, but you might have been, you know, in you know, ER all night and not slept in 2 days, but you know, you dealt with it in a way that was confusing, because it was just really, back then for me, it was all a sign of weakness. You know, it was really a weakness of your physical. You couldn't do things. You were concerned about, you know, it's hard to look cool with your puffer, you know, later on when the inhalers came out, you know, it's hard to look cool when you're, you know, whatever. And
Especially as a kid or as a teenager,
yeah,
all the other kids are active.
Yeah, no, I mean, I still played sports as much as I could later on. I mean, I couldn't do all the things that I wanted to do, but I wanted to be. I would say I don't have that many skill sets, but the one thing I work hard on is I know when to get to the party if I'm invited, and I know when to leave the party. You know, and I joke with my wife. You know, she's lucky because she can, you know, go to work, or I'm stuck with myself in a way. And, you know, and I can be too much. Like, I know that I can be too much for myself. You know, I don't know when to stop, or I don't know when to shut the fuck up, or I don't know when to say something, but I work hard trying to find that moment to deliver that message. And I think sometimes when things get lost in translation, it's not because they weren't of worth or they weren't important. It's because we failed to be present enough to know that it was the wrong moment to deliver. And I think if you're a server, if you're a bartender, it's always about reading the room, you know, of like, hey guys, welcome. You know, man's crying or the woman's crying, or the fucking, you know, they just brought their dog to get, you know, put to sleep, or whatever the challenge was. First date, last date, Valentine's Day was always fun, you know, for that. You know, you see people come together and a lot of flying chairs, and it was always somewhat, you know, not amusing, not the right word, but interesting to find that juxtaposition of fine line between love and I'm out of here kind of thing, and it made me want to hang around though in that way, in every way. It made me want to beat the daylights out of things, squeeze them, like to not be so dismissive when I'm done with it. Like, what else can we do with this? What else can we do with it, you know, before we give it away, you know? And I think with people, like, I'd be like, if I do you know, our books, we close. You know, if I do so many things in my work, and that's why this whole thing always taking a village of good souls that have skill sets. And, you know, I get more credit than I deserve, and maybe sometimes more blame than I deserve in some cases. But it was always about the village.
We often forget, we celebrate the names that were in front of the camera, but we often forget everyone who brought them to that point. Everyone that's behind the camera, behind the scenes. No one just gets to a point where they're successful without the help of others.
Well, I think that is very true. I think it's even if you don't work in the industry, you know, it's important, I think, sometimes to visit a bar like 8:30 in the morning after Saturday night, and you're cleaning up. You know, even though you cleaned up, the lights are on and the floor is sticky, and, you know, not in no restaurant or whatever, but in that restaurant growing up, you know, that club or whatever that you went to, someone's in the morning like fucking preparing for the next whatever, prom, date, shit, whatever, to fucking throw up or spill or drink or whatever. And then someone's gonna be there to clean it, to prepare for you, prepare the space for you, this canvas for your story, for your expression, whatever. And I, to the best of my ability, I try to think about all those people like that allow me to, like, that hold me up like a fucking scarecrow every day sometimes.
If you don't mind, I want to go back to the Bronx.
Yeah.
Growing up in New York, 60s and 70s, what was life like?
I remember I was never around anybody that I didn't know. I didn't really know any strangers. Everybody was somebody's uncle, somebody's cousin, somebody's dad. Doors were always open, hearts were open, noise was open, mouths were open. It was noisy. It was loving. It was dysfunctional. It was functional. There was always cake. There was always coffee. There was always a pot on the stove. There was always, you know, you're always welcome, you know?
Like a small town feeling.
Yeah, I think New York is the biggest small town in the world. I think Los Angeles is like that as well, even though you drive more, but you still have your neighborhood. And I think it's if you're in New York, you got your deli, your cleaners, you make the same route every day maniacally. You never go there. Like if you're in the Bronx, to go to Manhattan was like to go to another world. It was a million miles away. You didn't really leave the block much, And I think it's maybe different now. People see the world through their phone or they travel or they're, like a siren, they want to go somewhere. But I think there was a lot of, for different reasons that, not for a bad way, but people really didn't want you to go in a way. Like they would make other places worse, paint places worse, or maybe even some place people worse. Maybe to make their own situation better. I don't even think it was in a negative way. I think it was, I think in an immigrant culture, like a lot of Italian Americans, they came and they left whatever type of, either from earthquakes or blight or whatever situation they left. My family was from Puglia in an earthquake zone and there was no work. But to live there and work there in the early 1900s must have been daunting, and to leave your family and to come to a country. You probably had to create things in your world to exist, to make the reason for staying, or I'm sure it was confusing, and being in a country where you're just, you're the next, generation of immigrants. They're gonna do the shit, gonna do the work, gonna do the landscape and the building shit. Then the next one's gonna come, the next one's gonna come. And I think sometimes, like I see it culturally sometimes, in all immigrants, that there's a fraction that wants to kick the gate closed when the next generation gets in, And I don't know. I mean, I think it's this country has been built on hunger and defiance of things were unjust, and I think I've really grown more to love this country and the world, I guess, with all its flaws. Like, I think that we're all fucking flawed. And we've all have a history that there's a few do-overs in that thing, things we weren't do again. But I've always been like with my staff or my kids now, I'm more interested in what you do than what you did. Mm-hmm. I want to acknowledge it. I want to say, hey man, it ain't right, but I don't need to build a fucking, a statue of that and have you, carry this cross on your back for the rest of your life. We need to learn from things. We need to acknowledge them. We need to move the fuck on and go to work and love each other and serve each other. And so I was very, and looking back for sure, I was maybe because I hung around cooking with my mom when I was sick. I was stuck home. I was always around a lot of old people, like my grandmother, and old people I still think are the biggest underappreciated entity or whatever we are in this world. Like, it's hard to, like my father-in-law, man, he's super cool. Mexican-American, like long-haired hippie, goes to, 18 years old, Vietnam, out of Tempe, Arizona, and he's there, picture with long hair, smoking weed, listening to Hendrix, and all of a sudden he's in a fucking world so far away, and and now you see him. He's still in good shape. He still works out and whatever. He's 70, whatever, 70 something. But he rides a bike. He works out every day. But you see a picture, even like, you look at that older guy, that old guy. What do they know about my life? What do they know about life and music and film and art and fucking things, smoking weed? Like fucking this, that. I mean, it was all happening, brother. You didn't invent that shit. Mosh pits, shit going on, people marching, people fucking angry. People didn't know how this could happen generationally. And I think that's part of our issue is we look back and we don't read the letters, the love letters, or the letters that some soldier, read in the trench about what the fuck are we doing this for? This is, there's nothing here. There's no one here. Hope this never happens again, and we do it again because there's enough propaganda. We don't read the notes. We don't read the love letters. We don't read the I'm sorry letters, the tear-stained whatever letters of our past. We don't talk to the elders in our community because we're too busy, telling everybody about shit instead of like, fuck, man, I should shut the fuck up and listen what's up. I think, man, I can take some of that and now I can build on what I know. Mm-hmm. Like my kids can already text better. They can do things on the internet. I got younger kids. My staff too, I got to go with them. Like, what's going on with my fucking phone? I can't fix it. Or send this email, figure it out. The attachment, I don't know. They're already smart. And I think that's even the thing with young people. It's like, if we can understand, man, you have so much good about you. But that old dude has a lot of good too. Even though he smells kind of funny, he looks weird, whatever. Like if you were able to like get some of that wisdom, that thing, those stories about those people when he sat in Yankee Stadium way up and watched Babe Ruth or whatever bullshit, and there was a fight. I don't know, whatever it was. There was something about those moments that that when they're not passed down and they're not shared, we're doomed to repeat them, and we're incapable to acknowledge the triumphs that already exist. I think because we're so busy believing we invented them.
As we're talking about understanding the nuance of flaws and just humanity in general and how people tick, I watched your Chef's Table episode. And the one thing that caught my attention was that you mentioned that you struggled in school early on.
early and late, the whole time. Yeah.
So that caught my attention, and I wanted to understand why.
I didn't know for a long time, I guess, like my oldest daughter, Nina, she's 10. And, she has pretty severe ADHD. And my son, Leo, has dyslexia. And we do all these things to do our best to accommodate them and help them and find ways to. And, I don't know what I had or what I had. I just know that it was impossible for me to comprehend or sit still or to feel I belonged in this place. Like I couldn't receive, I guess. So it was like in that relationship, it's not you, it's me. I was incapable to receive, and I think that's the very difficult thing, which I've learned later on. It's like, man, we got to find our frequency. Our frequency is everything. It might not be for me. And I get it, man. The schools, like, God bless teachers. We have to find a pretty moderate or broad stroke to get as many people in a public school as possible. It's got 1,500 kids and we'll custom tailor a situation for you. For me, it was like special ed. Luckily, I took home ec, and I found something that I could feel a sense of belong, I guess, in a way. But
what was that like for you and your family growing up? Did you feel like a sense of shame or like rebelliousness?
I think it's always. I mean, if we're honest with ourselves, there's nothing that's not a mixed bag of everything. You know, I think it's hard to. I think you feel rebellion always first is the first reaction, and I think it's like the inhale and then the exhale. You know, it's like, the rebellion is first. Like I was talking to somebody on different side, one of my guys about, like, hey man, if you need time off to vote, whoever you're gonna vote for, that's your fucking thing. But just know that don't let your work be in the way for that. Take whatever time. It's like, oh man, fuck, both candidates suck. I'm not gonna vote. And I was like, dude, man, I feel like I'm talking to myself like 30 years ago or more. I'm 62 now, whatever. When I started voting, like, fuck that. That's how they get you. They start voting, and I don't need to do that. It doesn't matter. They're all the same. Everything's the same. It's all bad. Nobody knows who I am. I'm so different. Our generation's so different. They're for old people, rich people, whatever. It doesn't matter. And then as time goes by, you learn there's always something that's a little bit better and nothing that's perfect. And none will ever be perfect until we learn to work together. And those are true for restaurants, for relationships, for marriages, relationship with your dog, your fucking neighbor, all of it's the same shit, And so I pray to God my kids find their own path and we try to find their frequency. But for me, I just did the best I could, It was something not to be proud of or not be or ashamed of at the end of the day. I just did the best I could, what I was capable to understand, which I'm still learning about, And I think it's been helpful to find it's helpful to find the patience that maybe you seek, I guess, in a way. It was easy for me to be patient, maybe too patient. There's be some people that you can't fix. Some people don't want what you have to give, or you're incapable to give that. But I think it doesn't maybe stop me from wanting to find out what you need. And I think not having what I needed in a way, whether from my educational background, made me insatiable to learn. And learn from a way that was, tactile and observant and subservient and it's yeah, I don't know. I after 10th grade, I kind of just went to work and I just did something that what I could do to get by. And my parents are they were awesome. But I was like, all right, that's what you're gonna do. You need to go to work. And I think there's something about that challenge of I think pushing against, oh yes, you are. No, you're like, all right, no problem. You're gonna run away, there's the fucking door. I hope you're right. I give you all I could. If this is your fucking choice, I'm saddened by it. And I think being a parent, man, there's nothing worse than, or being a child, there's nothing worse than disappointing a parent. I'd rather be pissed off at you than disappointed. And I think there was that kind of sense of even though they might express their disappointment, that clearly, I mean, it was obvious and understandably so, in that moment. But I was equally, if not just as disappointed in myself, I was just confused on where I wanted to be and where I wanted to do and what could I do and I think that's what at that time. In my early 20s, going to Arizona was like going to outer space. You know, that was like, I never been anywhere. I didn't know anyone. I didn't know a soul. I just, you know, I was supposed to go to California. A friend of mine was getting some work, and very long story short, there's different versions of it that I've heard in the world, but the reality was, Arizona was like an accident, you know, I had a friend of mine that went to mechanic school there. When I found out the job California wasn't there. And I just ended up where I heard it would be good for my asthma. That was one thing, like living in the desert, I heard would be better. And I just thought I could not even reinvent myself because I wasn't even invented yet, but I thought I could go somewhere. And I remember going there and I could see the sky bend, and I could see things. I could gain the necessary perspective I needed, you know? And I think sometimes you're just too close to it. As we look between buildings, postage stamp, pockets of sky, and even here in downtown LA, which I love it because I'm a city kid at heart. I also love to go fly fishing in Montana or in Idaho, and turn my phone off and listen to the deafening sound of the river, you know, and submit to it.
I was curious of why Arizona, because you leave the center of the universe, which is New York, you know, in many ways.
Allegedly.
And your family's there, the community that you talked about, how it's this biggest, smallest village, you know, and you go to Arizona.
Yeah, it's pretty trippy. I think there's something like, you know, if I really look back on it, I think, you know, there is something it's like, you know, it was a camera, and I think you have to find the perspective to find the clarity that you need to take the appropriate shot. And in New York, I just felt I was too close to it, whatever it was. Now, I'm fed by New York and inspired by New York all the time. Like growing up, and all the characters and the faces and the stories, still the greatest storytellers in the world. And the intensity, like anything that I have, was that ability to hustle, that ability to fucking never give up. It was from those people that like, they worked, man. They fucking worked early, late, whatever it took, just worked. And so there's nothing but gratitude in that, and an observation in that. And I hold that dear with immeasurable gratitude. But I think, what do you do with that? I think for me was the question. And I think for me, I looked at at the time seeing that I don't consider myself a leader now, but I guess in some cases I am, whatever. I lead my little team here. I think sometimes to lead, you have to get ahead of where you've been to see where the fuck you want to go. And then you can look back upon the perch and just say, yeah, that was the best route if I ever need to travel back again. Or I can tell others about, you know, the perils of that journey or whatever. So I think there was a lot in that unexpected roadie, you know, to the Grand Canyon State that, you know, saved my life in a lot of ways, you know. And not to be too dramatic about it, but I never felt, it wasn't that I felt suicidal or things of that nature, but I really felt from a sense of worth or place. I was just looking for a place to see the light, I guess.
I'm so glad you called it a frequency. And the reason why I wanted to like really focus on this point of a struggling learner as a kid. I was the same way. I was a terrible student. I couldn't retain the information. It was all this information being thrown at me, but I couldn't like capture it. And I couldn't focus. But I loved to learn. I loved it. I was such a curious kid. Even till today, I'm just constantly wanting to learn. Sometimes in society, I feel like there's a set path that's meant for the majority. And then there's these outsider kids that the situation or the ecosystem that they're in it's not for them. And they haven't found that right frequency that makes sense for them. And it's a very depressive state because you feel like an outsider, you feel lost, and you're searching and searching. So I could relate to that. And that's I found my way of learning through entrepreneurship and just by feeling and through experience. And
Was it what else? It was like other genres, like music or film or whatever. I think that
art,
like
creativity.
for me, I think that was for me. Those were the lessons. I think a lot of that. I mean, like you look at, I mean, still, it was like, man, I was born in '62, and like, like you see, like, Lou Reed's playing, and or whatever. There was just an energy of painters and artists and music and film and like, not that I was in any of those, like, or felt I was just observant of them. And I think I found myself, especially music, which is still a great love of mine, that I find that, I've said this many times, but I think chefs, if we have an alter ego or a kind of duality, it's more of a producer, or someone that scores music for film. This exists. I'm putting in cadence with ways for you to absorb it, to see it, and I'm trying to soundtrack it like that fucking Perfect Roadie cassette tape in your LTD 1974 grandfather's car. When he died, you got or something. My brother got that one. I didn't get that. But a blue LTD. Yeah. No, it was Gran Torino. Speaking of that, but yeah, I think it's I think understanding, like, it's like, spirituality, okay, this is my church and that's my church. Well, it is in that way. Like you don't get, what I was saying earlier, like you don't get away with everything, but anything, but you also get everything everywhere. I mean, I think a place to be good or to be in connection with your creator, whoever that will be for you, and to be connected to it, like constantly, like I feel tethered to like something greater than me always, something loving and merciful and kind. And even though I haven't seen it or can't explain it, or don't believe fucking man even can begin to articulate it, that I know there's something greater than me, and I believe that there's something beyond our ability to see it, and it's not important to deny that or to prove it. It's for me to feel it. And I think the things that I feel, like, I'm a dog on a bone about it. It doesn't matter, like, if I believe it, And the same thing if you believe it, like the best anything is anything you like best.
Mm-hmm.
Fuck this, what's the best for you? The best song ever, we never argue about it.
Mm-hmm.
Best meal you ever had? Why should we? Best restaurant. And that's why, like, I try to replace it with my favorite. And those things are less confrontational for myself even. Because sometimes I do joke best day ever, and I tell my kids or in my friends, I'll say that a lot, but I always say, like, we can take all the other ones with us. It's like heaven in a way. It's like, it's not an island. It's not tennis or golf. No disrespect, but it's not a singles game. It's not an island of misfit, of a misfit toy. It's a collective of misfits and people that maybe just try to do the right thing. If we believe that exists, we're all invited, in that way. If we, I think at a minimum, we're just kind,
So did you find your frequency in restaurants, in food?
I think everything is everything's partial. They're parts of that. For me, it was food, but it was the like, when I first discovered, like, man, espresso does smell pretty good in the morning. And the sound of a spoon hitting the ceramic. Even though I don't put sugar, I just drink black espresso, but sometimes I like to bang the spoon around if I'm in a little coffee shop. Or there's a sound and there's a feeling and there's like toast, 2 minutes, and there's aromatherapy and it's fast. But you can say, well, even though this is like whatever, I can go get someone that took 3 days to make that loaf of bread. I can get, a $69 toaster or less. But I want, some tag salad or whatever. Get a shitty toaster, get a really good loaf of bread, get the best butter you can find, temper it, smear it on with your finger, maybe a little bump of flake salt, and have the best meal that you could have with someone you love. In the morning, in the morning light with a coffee, and like you remember those sounds, those smells. And now, yeah, one day maybe you're in Piedmont having truffles on scrambled eggs, and that's good too. That's another moment, but it's not better than the moment you had having toast with somebody you loved. And I think those things, like we should have things we pine for and remember. But I think, the ritual of the day, like in Phoenix, I have this little fireplace in my house, and it's like these gas logs, but they look pretty real. But every morning, I don't give a fuck if it's the summer, it's 100 degrees. It's like 5 a.m. I put it on. I just try to get up pretty early before anybody gets up, and I just put it on, and I have my coffee. I put the fire on, and I stare at it like a caveman, and it's my favorite part of. It's not my favorite part of the day, but I would say if I don't have that to start my day, it's a different kind of lit fuse for the day. It's like I need that reset. Like I need to have things that tell me that I'm here. I'm where I need to be. And when I don't have that, I feel somewhat off in that way. And good luck editing all this shit. You'll get something out of it. I hope you get something out of it.
This is gonna be all unedited,
Raw,
God. Baby. I can see the connection back to music, because music is a feeling. When you listen to it, when you hear it, it creates a vibe. And same with food. You don't even have to taste it, just by the sound and the smell. How you describe just sitting there with your espresso, like it's already contributing to a feeling around it. And I think food is such a powerful way to do that, just like music.
Well, it could be like for instance, like there's certain things that when I say the word music, like what someone thinks of music and when I think of music might be two different things. When I think of music, I might think about being, 19 in the back of some club, seeing a great show, and band that I love was dragging their Marshall amp out the back, and I talked to them for 8 seconds, and they were kind, they were nice, they were kind, or they you were able to, whatever it was, there was something about the music and the acknowledgement in the moment that reinforced your investment in music, and the same thing about food, or the same thing about art. You see a piece of art and you say, oh, fuck, that isn't that. This ain't even that goddamn good. Like I could do that. And then you look, then you turn the page, and about the artist, like somebody with no arms or legs painting with a brush in their teeth. You're like, fuck, I should have shut the fuck up and maybe, turned the page and did my diligence before I had it turned into, Jerry Saltz and art critic. But yeah, man, we need to dive in. We don't need to. I guess we don't need to do shit, but I need to. I need to dive in. You need to do what you got to do, I think. But I need to. And I need to know that, I do care what you think, I do care what others think of me.
So how do you go from leaving New York, finding your way into Arizona, to then jumping to having the best pizza restaurant in this country?
You know what? I think a lot of it was timing, and a lot of it was. I'm very proud of what we do, and I think it's special and it's great. there's many people today that are doing as good as pizza as we do. I believe. But I think there was something about just the, that kind of confluence of time and place and our ability to, like, even in that space, in an empty desert, be able to present it to you in a place that I was able to sucker punch you and you didn't expect it. And then I don't want to get it twisted. It wasn't like people didn't try to chip away at it all the time and check you out. It's like barbecue and pizza. Everybody knows more than you do, and breakfast, And, it's like everyone's gonna tell you. And I just kept my head down and went to work, and I felt safety in that, where I just, the more people that will come and line up, it just freaked me out, it fucking freaked me out when I see a line like that seemed endless. And, people, like I said, they would go come in like 2 hours later, like, you made me wait. I was like, listen, man, I want to take your money like 2 hours ago. I could have used it. I'm fucking tired. My back hurts. I'm sneezing flour or whatever. And, but I'm doing the best I can, yeah, I just saw it as, I was representing something, I was representing, like when I worked oven every day, or even now, like, like having a little health issue where I had to stop being at the oven every day was another blessing, which I was learning to delegate, which I'd never learned to do. Where, 18, 20 years at the oven, every fucking day, every shift, you could be there 20 hours a week, and people come to 22nd. I'm like, dude, I came, you weren't even there, big shot, you're not even around anymore. Like, and one day we won't be around, bro. So we better not build a house of cards serving the ideals of others. I want to serve others, but I don't want to serve and have them to be, master of what's enough. And I think that's one thing that, it's a little bit like sports, and I only have so many analogies, so I apologize you probably heard this before, but I say it, but, it is like sports in that way. It's like, we throw 100 miles an hour, or we jump out of the gym and we can play and we can do this, and we're pretty good players, but one day you gotta buy the team, or you gotta be an announcer, you gotta, be the chubby guy in the tight pants in the third base box, calling signals. Like there's a part where you have to affect the game to the game's greatest good. You can't just keep pretending and like spray my hair orange and put enough fucking makeup on me, wear a long red tie and pretend I'm 26. I'm not, I'm 62, shit hurts. I'm achy. I want to take better care of myself. I want to have more time. I want to do these things. I feel that I still have a lot to live for, and I want to live a long time, but I do live every day like this will be the last interview I'll ever do, conversation I'll ever have. I talk about it all the time, and I say to people that I love all the time that I love them all the time. Because you'll be right, one day. You'll have that last conversation with somebody. And what's it going to be for you? What's it going to be? For me, I hope it's one that's loving. I'm not fucking complaining. My soup's cold, Gives a fuck. No one cares. I heat it up, move on. To really talk about shit that matters. And if it's broke, let's fix it. I want to hear about solutions. I understand the problems in our world. Like here in the inner city, downtown Los Angeles, there's a crisis of people living on the street and struggling, and sometimes we confuse empathy with or negligence with empathy. Like instead of dealing with it and find out what they need, what do you really need? Is it just a roof? Is it mental health? Is it food? Is it all the above? Like, what is it? Well, we keep driving around by it and just, letting somebody be there. And we're empathetic because we don't fuck with them. And I think that's a whole nother conversation. We don't got enough wire for, but I don't have the answers to that shit. It's not easy. but it doesn't mean we don't ask the questions. And when we do ask those questions, if someone that I don't jump on somebody, for somebody that, well, fuck it, you don't know how it is. And well, that's what we're doing. We're trying to understand. We're trying to figure it out. We're trying to understand why, well, and what we can do about it. And there's never nothing that we can't do. I don't believe that. Very rarely was nothing I can do. There's always something that we can do, I think.
I wanted to just close the loop on the topic around learning.
Yes.
Because you struggled academically as a kid.
Say it kindly, yeah. I did struggle academically.
But you learned the art of flavor and taste and the science of combining ingredients.
But that was my frequency.
How did you find the structure of the way in order to learn that?
I think it just found me, more than that. I think I was open to it. And I think you find love when you're open to it. You find where you want to go when you're open to it. Somebody told me a long time ago, when I didn't know where I had a couple opportunities, wanted to go to Portland, Seattle, restaurants were going off back in, 35 years ago. And he gave me some good advice and said, you need to work where you live and never live where you work because you'll resent it. So figure out where the fuck you want to wake up, and who you want to wake up with, and where it is, and you'll find something to fill your time in that way that serves your life. But if you put like, oh man, I fucking hate whatever, but work is good and check is good or whatever the fuck, you'll never, I don't think, find joy in that. So I think for me, I found this place. Like for me, Arizona, it gave me something. It gave me a place. I could afford an apartment. I could watch the sunrise. I could learn how to navigate the weather. Like, could shop at midnight, for groceries at Smitty's Big Town, whatever, back in the day. And, you learn to not curse the sun. You just gonna, fucking stay out and stare at it at noon. You just learn how we work together. And, I said this a lot of time, but the desert seems empty until you lay down in that shit. And then you're covered in red ants and scorpions and fucking cactus and whatever. And you'll have a different perspective, I think, of things when you seek their either purpose or purpose in your own life. And for me, those are my teachers, all of it, and they still are.
And correct me if I'm wrong, I think you also found a way to talk to farmers and understand just ingredients, understand produce. I mean, for God's sakes, your canned tomatoes are the best. Like even the best chefs use your canned tomatoes.
I mean, that stuff is all, all the good earth, and that one too, though, was a real personal project. My partner, Rob DiNapoli, a lot of times people think it's just Bianco from Napoli, but it's Rob DiNapoli's a living, breathing guardian angel. A lot of people have different stories about partners. And, we've been together about 18 years now and been on the market for like 15 of those years now. And, he was like a third generation tomato grower and packer, grandmother, great grandmother moves to California, I think late 1800s or something. And in Sac Valley, and then they use Italian immigrants. They come in and they plant tomatoes and he had his own brand and they're really good. But I wanted to do something that was a little bit different and that was organic and that was hopefully working towards regenerative farming. And I could work on the viscosity of the tomato juice. We could work on, basil leaves or not, or the salinity in the pack. My dad did all the artwork on all the labels, so they were super personal. And my brother and I scribbled the letters on them, and on my dad's art. The colors were all significant for different reasons. And so I think there were things. It was a project that was, like everything. It's like a personal question. They're all personal questions. This is all. I wouldn't slap my name on anything, but I would put my heart in anything that I believed in. you know?
What was the personal question you were trying to answer with this project?
Well, I'm saying they're all personal.
Yeah.
All of it. Like, oh, what do you want to do? Or like, it's not just like, oh, this is a business decision or it's whatever. Like this is an opportunity to make something better than you found it. In this case, a pantry or a lunch or a chef's opportunity to make maybe a better dish, a farmer's opportunity to have an audience for someone that's willing to make the commitment to pay a little bit more and work together to make something better than they found it. And it doesn't mean that every other tomato that's already great isn't great. It's like wine or anything else. We just wanted to make a commitment to our own form of, we thought, of excellence that might find an audience. It didn't mean that everything else sucked. It didn't mean that everything else was whatever. I don't talk shit about anything else. I just want to do something that made sense to me, and with the hope it might make sense to you.
I kind of want to end on legacy. Is legacy important to you?
It is very important to me.
Why?
I think, like the movie Coco taught us many times, I say, it's all that is our eternity, I guess. You know, that is, the monuments that'll be tumbled down or maybe dusted off. So I think the legacies we leave, not to be necessarily revered, but I guess appropriately remembered by the people that you loved. And I think that's one way we know we stay eternal. If people never forget who you are, then you live on, I think, in that way. And so I think it was important for me to impact lives, that I left something that they could hold on and becomes part of them, I guess, in a way. And I think that's my form of legacy, I guess. But I don't really need a statue.
What are you learning today?
I'm learning many things today. One is navigating traffic on the way home will be another learned lesson. There's the World Series, Pink Floyd, Suns, Lakers.
That's a constant learning experience for all Angelinos.
Yeah. But you know what, man? It's so broad. I'm learning, like, I'm constantly calling bullshit on myself in a way sometimes, like on things that, like I don't have enough time to do or can't do, or I'm just learning to, I guess, today respond to the moment of what's needed. What do we need? But I walk over to the pizzeria when we shut the lights off here tonight. What's gonna make tomorrow easier? And yesterday, kinder in retrospect, I guess. So yeah, the lessons never stop. I think they just, some are louder and brighter and more obvious than others. But man, it's I'm very humbled you came to visit. I'm always grateful and surprised when people want to talk to me about fucking anything. I don't know, man. I'm just trying to do the right thing,
Chris, I wanted to thank you for having this beautiful conversation with me. And you're someone I look up to. So this was a profound experience for myself, just to sit down with you. And I'm glad you're here in LA too.
Well, that's very kind. I'm grateful to be here. I'm grateful. But it really is an amazing community. And I can't say that enough about Los Angeles. That a lot of my life, I think, is like, when you people think they know who you are, they have certain ideas about who you are. And I think Los Angeles is a lot like that. They think they know what it's all about and what it is and what people are. And New York, I think, the same way. But when you're in there, I think there's an undeniable, I find, artistic energy, a light. There's so much good. There's so much, like from a chef's perspective, so much bounty. Mm-hmm. And there's so much to be, so like I said, so grateful for. I'll say if you can't cook here, you gotta fucking stop.
You have a knack for adapting to new environments and contributing to it. Your own way, your own version.
Well, I'm a visitor, bro. I'm a visitor. That's what we are when we're visitors. When we're natives, sometimes, I don't think either the luxury or the drive to know that you want to find your place, and you want to find you want to be welcome, and then you can provide that welcomeness for the next one with good intention.
Thank you, Chris.
Thank you, brother. Thanks for being vulnerable yourself and welcome into my rambling.
I appreciate it.
Cheers. All the best.